Hello and welcome to the CX Files for May 26th, 2022. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil. My co-host Peter Ryan was with me earlier. We did actually record this introduction together, but there were some technical problems with Zoom and this meant the recording was unusable. By the time I managed to track down Peter again, he was sitting in an airport lounge in Jamaica, so it wasn't going to be a very good recording if we did it again. So I'm just here alone and I'm going to introduce this episode. I've got my microphone and Peter's enjoying a rum punch somewhere in Jamaica. Now it's timely that Peter's in Jamaica at the moment though, as this week we're focusing on the evolution of nearshoring. Peter recently talked to Cathy Jooste at Atento about how nearshoring has developed and what we might see next. Now, Cathy is the Chief Commercial Officer and US Nearshore Director at Atento, and she's based in Florida in the US, so she's got exactly the right role and the right location for this discussion. Nearshoring has been a really important topic for CX executives for many years now. It allows companies to access expertise without the constant flights across the world to India or the Philippines, and usually the costs can also be reduced. Now, travel became a big problem, as we know, during the pandemic, so many CX companies are now looking again at nearshoring and how it might be expanded. In this discussion, Cathy talks about some unfamiliar locations, such as Peru and Guyana, that are now entering the BPO map. Okay, we should go straight to the discussion between Peter and Cathy, because without Peter here, we can't enjoy our usual friendly banter.
The CX Files truly enjoys meeting different people to come on the podcast that will be able to give an interesting perspective, not just on the science of CX, but also the role of CX delivery in different parts of the world, which is why we are so delighted to welcome Cathy Jooste to the CX Files podcast today. Cathy joins us from Miami, and she is with Atento. Cathy, can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your schedule. With travel coming back, I can just imagine how stretched you are in terms of time, so it's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Peter. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we look forward to an exciting and scintillating discussion with you today. And your specialty is the nearshore, the American nearshore. And one of the things I'd like to talk to you about is the evolution of this, not just business model, but the region of the American nearshore, just as a point of kickoff. You know, I can recall when I got involved as an analyst in the CX space, the American nearshore was basically Mexico. That was it. But over the course of the past 2 decades, it has grown exponentially. And if I'm honest with you, with the traffic that I'm getting in terms of emails and inquiries on the telephone from my clients, it doesn't show any sign of abating. There's more interest in getting into the nearshore, I think, than ever. What do you put this down to?
That's good. That's our sweet spot. So that works for us. Look, the whole CX industry is growing as a whole. And if you think about yourself as a consumer, our needs for doing things less in stores, more by the phone, for everything, or by computers and our actual phones, that whole market is growing. So, you can do that onshore, offshore, or nearshore. And the first movement, if you will, in this evolution was companies thought they wanted to do everything onshore, right? The first wave of America first, we wanted the American voice, the understanding, the cultural alignment. And then we went through this massive switch to a labor arbitrage where we went to India and the Philippines. But what the nearshore market really gives you is a nice compromise between those two. It's a very nice balance because you're able to really get very close on a cultural alignment aspect. If you think about even our US population, about close to 20% of the US population is Hispanic today. Places like Miami, it's close to 50%. So we're very friendly neighbors where we go to vacation, right? We go to Mexico and we go to Costa Rica and all these places. There's a very close cultural alignment, and they come and visit here as well. They go to Disney World. So many of them go to universities here and so forth. So that gives you that cultural alignment that creates very nice customer experience, almost like you would in the US. If you add on to that the fact that it is still about a third of the price, maybe even less now, than the US, it's not as cheap as it would be in an offshore component, but it really drives a very nice value for your money. So I think you're right. I think it'll continue to grow, and we're continuing to see new pockets of nearshore destinations becoming interesting, right? It used to be, like you said, Mexico, and even in the time I'd been here, it was Guatemala and Colombia.
Yeah.
Now we're adding, other places. We're looking at places like Peru. Is that an English speaking location? And all over the Caribbean market.
Yeah, no, it's bang on. And it's interesting because I conduct an annual survey of contact center service buyers. So enterprise contact center managers, decision makers. Something that we've picked up in the last couple of iterations of the survey, and we just published our most recent one a couple of weeks ago, and it was consistent, was that the buying community is very much focused on wanting to work with BPOs that are closer to home than ever before. And as an example, the priority they're placing on outsourcers that have got locations of delivery in the American nearshore, or from a European standpoint, it's very much similar. They're looking for locations that are within a 3-4 hour flight. Is this something that you've noticed that the clients and prospects at Atento are talking to you about as well? There's much less of a desire to get on a plane for 18 to 24 hours and much more of a willingness to look at locations that might be a spot that you could access and come home the same day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you think about our clients, right, they run the customer experience for their particular brand, and they are trusting us with their most valuable asset. So the more often they can visit, the closer they can be to the people who offer their end services, who become their brand ambassadors, the more convenient and more compelling it becomes for our clients. So, despite the fact that the geographic proximity is so easy, like you just call out, it's a 3-4 hour plane ride. In most cases, it's even direct, depending upon where you're going. The time zone proximity also makes it a very nice ease of doing business. So I believe that we will continue to see that. Now, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with the Waha model, right? And if people truly do get more distributed and away from the centers, if that changes and we just become all over the place. But for the time being, I think there is still a desire from our customers to see their operations, feel their operations, meet with the agents that represent their brands, and get that affinity.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things that I get asked a lot about is this delineation of functions, or what elements of the CX business model can be performed exceptionally well in different locations. One thing I'm really curious about, based on your experience, are there any specific tasks that are handled much better in the nearshore that you would prioritize in terms of nearshore delivery as opposed to domestically or further afield?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, before I joined Atento, I had a preconceived notion that probably all things customer support would be very well done in the nearshore market for all the reasons we spoke about. We've got a very close cultural affinity. Then all the different, not all, but many of the countries across Latin America has a very customer service DNA, kind of, if I could say that. It's the empathy is a very strong component of it. So that was my preconceived notion. I wasn't wrong. I think customer service still is probably our sweet spot. But, as I've learned, is the earth is flat. The technology that we're able to see in India or in Silicon Valley, we're able to see all over South America as well. So we are serving, a pretty wide spread of sales, tech support, back office, collections. There really is no limit. If you can offer it in Silicon Valley, India, or the Philippines, you can offer it in South America. Or in South Central America. The customer service definitely is a differentiator for us, though.
So obviously there is a lot of disruption that's still going on as we enter the post-pandemic period, or at least, knock on wood, what we hope is the post-pandemic period, Cathy. And with disruption brings challenges and questions about the viability long-term of a way of handling CX. And it raises questions about potential roadblocks that might be on the pathway. What do you see as, from an American nearshore perspective, the challenges that you're likely, or any other provider is likely, to face over the course of the coming 24 to 36 months as we establish what the new normal is going to be in business and society?
Yeah, if we can, fast forward and pretend that, this is the new normal, and we're working with the technology the way it is. I think there's two things that come to mind, right? With the influx of services to nearshore, there's a bit of a gold rush toward nearshore services, and you're seeing many new market entrants popping up. Some of which are the best intentions, some of which grew up in some other place. Atento, we grew up in Latin America. So we've been there 22 years. We have a brand presence with the local universities, with the communities, the engagement there. So Atento is Latin America. With some of the new market entrants, I don't know that in all cases the same cultural affinity is there. And if we're not careful, we could see a dilution of the value proposition for the market overall, because the name of the game in this world is to attract and retain talent, right? For us, that is what it's about. And unless we're able to really connect with talent at the way that they engage in their lives, that'll be a tricky one. So that's a little bit more, the earth is good perspective. The second one that I think is very tactical is around, cybersecurity and fraud and those kinds of things. This is a global threat. We see this anywhere in the world, and Latin America and nearshore service is certainly not immune to it. I think, the important part is to make sure that, for clients out there, if you engage with a potential partner such as Atento or others, make sure that all the right practices are in place. These things are not completely preventable, but let's make sure that to the extent we're doing everything that we can to prevent it, and that we're recovering fast from those sides. I think, to me, those are the two things: is the oversaturation of the market, and then just continuing to drive a proper security.
But I want to touch on that oversaturation, because this is something I've been picking up in the analytical work that I've done over the course of the past few years. And I think we could all agree that there's a lot of different countries, even cities within the American nearshore, that have hit that point. And it's going to be very tough for providers and their clients to move forward in a value-driven manner. And that raises another question, Cathy, that I'm picking up a lot of concern around. We've all heard the expression, the cliche, the Great Resignation, that's been going on in many different demand markets, such as North America, Western Europe, Australia. To what extent is the Great Resignation a factor in the American nearshore? Is this something that the outsourcing community and their clients need to be concerned with as well?
Again, I don't think anyone is truly immune from, let's call it, the labor market shift that we've seen. The Great Resignation, from my perspective, and I haven't done the analysis, I'll tell you what I touch, feel, and see, is very much an issue for us in the US. And I see it at all levels of my staff, from the junior agent to senior managers, and people are really rethinking what is the environment I want to work in. In South Central America, Mexico, and these places, where there's the competing force of the equivalent of the Great Recession as well. So we're very close to the poverty line in some cases, and I think there's much more of a desire to work, but we're also seeing a little bit more pickiness in the way that we work, right? What was a nice to have in the past, which is this employee engagement model, is a bare minimum now. With all the different market entrants, as I talked about, it's become a competitive landscape, and there is a war for talent. So that's a long-winded politician way of saying, I don't believe the Great Resignation is such a big threat in the nearshore market, but there are some different labor elements that should not be ignored.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up our discussion, which has been fantastic. Thank you so much once again, Cathy. I want you to think about the counsel you would give to an enterprise that was looking to work with a BPO provider in the American nearshore for the first time. What should they be putting on their priority list as they go out and search for a provider? And what are some of the factors that they should be considering with regards to setting up some or all of their capacity within the scope of Latin America or the Caribbean?
That's a great question. So, as I mentioned earlier, for the time being and for the foreseeable future, security has to be top of mind. Find a company that you believe has the right security practices in place, both cyber and fraud prevention, right? And make sure that the company values that. But beyond that, I would give a little bit more holistic. We're building a house, and we picked a builder. And someone told us, when you do this kind of thing, you have to pick a builder as if you're picking a marriage partner. And I would say, because you're spending so much time together. And I would say the same thing for any potential clients. When you pick a provider, you have to pick someone that is almost like a marriage partner, because you're going to go through everything together. Think about the last 2 years, what we've just went through as a global environment. So find a company that values what you value. So at Atento, we value integrity, agility, customer orientation, collaboration, and accountability. Those are the ones that we put our core values. Every decision that we make, we refer back to our core values. So if you find a company that's similar to yours, you should be able to overcome some of the same things, right? If agility is front of mind to you, find a company that can actually deliver fast and not sacrifice quality. Think about those things as a close alignment. That would be my altruistic advice.
Well, I think it's very good advice, and it's a great note that we can wrap on today. Cathy, thank you so much. It's been fascinating in terms of getting your perspective on the American nearshore. Obviously, like I say, it's a region that I've been covering for years, and it continues to fascinate. I look forward, now that we're able to get back on the road, to checking out some of the countries that I haven't had the opportunity to visit, and hopefully we'll be able to pop by one of the Atento sites sooner rather than later.
We'd love to have you. Thank you for the time, Peter.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.